Hello everybody and welcome to another board game discussion video. Today's topic is extremely unique because it is a question to you, because I don't know. Is it possible for a game company to become too big to use Kickstarter? If a game company starts off by using Kickstarter, sees some success and is trudging along pretty good, is there some point where they have to say, we're going to stop using Kickstarter? Is there ever any motivation for them to stop using Kickstarter? I'm curious. I have no idea. So what I want to do is I want to preface this discussion a little bit by saying a couple key points. First off is that I know nothing about business. I am not a business person. I don't know about obtaining finances, about development times and costs, about shipping and manufacturing, all of that stuff. It's just completely over my head. I have no idea. So I know that Kickstarter enables companies who don't have funding otherwise to be able to do those things. But I also know that there are some game companies who are making literal millions of dollars off of Kickstarter. And I don't know how much of that is profit. I don't know how much of it has to go directly to the games, to the designers, to whoever, wherever, however. So the second point that I wanted to get across is really that I am genuinely curious about this. So please, if you know anything about this process, share it in the comments, because I would love to hear all of it. Essentially, what I wanted to do today was to talk about a few major companies that have either used or not used Kickstarter, and essentially my kind of opinions on where I stand. So essentially, there's some companies that use Kickstarter that I think probably shouldn't, some companies that don't use Kickstarter that may need to or that would probably be successful, and then also I want to talk about some companies using Kickstarter that I think fit really well into the Kickstarter model. So that's pretty much it. But again, I'm mostly just curious what you guys have to say, because I'm hoping that one of you knows far more about this than I do. So effectively, I wanted to talk about the why of Kickstarter, how they get off of Kickstarter if they do, and when can they get off of Kickstarter. So I wanted to start off with the names of a few companies. You may have heard of Queen Games. Queen Games has made a lot of games in the relatively recent past. They've done a lot of big boxes as well, and they are huge on Kickstarter. So they did Treasure Hunter, they did Fresco, they did a handful of others that I can't remember immediately, but they're pretty big on Kickstarter. They have done a lot of Kickstarters and been fairly successful. I'm curious as to why they're still doing it, honestly, because it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But that said, they are also a well-known company. If I say Queen Games, chances are you guys probably know what I'm talking about. Same thing if I say CMON, that is to say Cool Mini or Not. If I say that company, I'm sure a lot of you have either your favorite, your least favorite, the one that you've heard of, whatever it happens to be, from that company. So for example, Rising Sun came from them. The Al Capone game came from them. The Corleone's Empire, the Godfather one, sorry, not the Al Capone one. They also did, I believe they did Blood Rage, but they've done dozens of games at this point. Well, maybe not dozens, but a lot of games. They have done a bunch of games. And so they dominate Kickstarter frequently. Millions of dollars in the bank for some of their games. Now, is it just because of mini manufacturing that they have to go on Kickstarter? Can they not find a venture capitalist group that is willing to invest in a successful board game company? Are they successful? Are they profitable? I have no idea. I honestly do not know. Now, what about Cephalofare Games? Have any of you heard of that? Because when I looked it up, I honestly didn't know what the game or what the company was. But the fact is that Cephalofare Games is arguably the most successful board game Kickstarter company. They made Gloomhaven. They also recently made Frosthaven, which is the most funded board game in Kickstarter's history. But Cephalofare Games? Never heard of them. I don't know if it's because it's a super small company. I don't know if it's because they just don't want to be in the spotlight. I have no idea. But this is what I'm talking about. They are highly successful on Kickstarter, the most successful on Kickstarter. Why are they still on Kickstarter? I don't know. What is the issue that can't be brought to a capitalist group or a bank to get a loan or something like that. Again, I don't know the business side of things, so I am genuinely curious about that. A couple others that I wanted to mention. First off, Space Cowboys. Relatively small company, but they put out some great games. Splendor, for example, came from Space Cowboys, as did Time Stories. The thing is, again, small company. They haven't done a whole lot, and they are not on Kickstarter. But you constantly see them at conventions. They're at Gen Con, they're at PAX, they're at the BGG Con. All of these places you will see Space Cowboys. Why is it that they're able to stay off of Kickstarter, at least by and large? I don't know. I don't get it. Is it because, like, Time Stories, for example, was a very specific thing, or what? I genuinely don't know. Another good example here is Guillotine Games. So Guillotine Games very famously made the Zombicide series. But again, I had to look up what company it was because all I knew was Zombicide. And maybe that's part of the problem. Maybe it's because they don't have name recognition or as much name recognition that it makes the companies harder, or it makes it harder for the companies to go out and get funding from other resources or whatever it happens to be. Another one that I wanted to talk about as well is Genius Games / Artana Games. I have talked a lot about these guys, and I have to say that I absolutely love them. I really do. There is not a game from them that I have really disliked. And the fact is that I think they fit the Kickstarter model very, very well. The thing is that Genius Artana have a relatively specific niche in board gaming in that they make highly scientifically accurate board games about any number of things. So we've got, for example, Cytosis here, which is about molecular biology, cell and molecular biology. They also have a protein building game. They've got Ion, they've got Compounded. They recently released Periodic. The game Genotype, or Genotyping, is on Kickstarter, as is Intrepid, a game about the ISS that was developed in part with a NASA engineer. It's incredible. It's truly incredible, and there is some wonderful science in all of these games. But again, this is a good example, in my opinion at least, of where a company can fit well into Kickstarter, because they don't make millions of dollars off of it, but they do make good money, and they're able to do all of their development and make sure everything looks nice and is nice, and they have been wonderful when it comes to fulfilling all of their games. And so I really love them for that. But then on the other side of the coin, we will see games like Fantasy Flight, Rio Grande Games, Steve Jackson Games, things like this, where they've got a ton of name recognition who never go on to Kickstarter. Now, my guess for this is simply that they have been established for so long that there's no reason for them to go to Kickstarter, particularly something like Fantasy Flight or Wizards of the Coast. They have such huge banks and massive infrastructures that they don't have to worry about needing to get funding for a particular game development, especially when it comes to Fantasy Flight and working with IPs like Star Wars, Game of Thrones, and things of that nature. They probably get some kind of a licensing deal, although I would imagine that they have to pay for it. And so it's crazy stuff. A couple other good examples off the top of my head. Z-Man Games, very famously making Pandemic. Again, older company, so maybe that's why we don't see them on Kickstarter, but again, super popular games, so obviously not too much of a problem. Stonemaier Games was very famously massive on Kickstarter as well, with Scythe, and more recently with Wingspan. Again, they're still coming back to Kickstarter, even though they are now very, very successful. They're even making video game versions of Scythe and all of this kind of stuff. And I love to see that. Don't get me wrong. I absolutely love the fact that these companies are being successful. But why is it that they are going to a glorified pre-order model all the time? I think at some point, you essentially need to leave Kickstarter for the smaller companies, these small indie single or several handful person developer type companies, and take your Gloomhaven and your Frosthaven and develop it on your own and then release it like a normal game. Again though, I'm curious what you guys know about this. Is it development times? Is it the production costs? Is it freight costs? Is it a combination of everything? What is it about these particular companies that make them not want to leave Kickstarter or refuse to leave Kickstarter or not adopt a different model? I mean, it could be they're just stuck there. It could be that they simply can't make the capital. I have no idea. So please let me know in the comments, because I am really, really curious to hear from people who know better than I do. But of course, that is far more than enough ranting from me and raving and all that good stuff. But of course, as always, I hope that you guys enjoyed the video. Thank you very, very much for watching it. If you haven't done so already, please take a look at my various social media pages where you can interact with myself and my channel in a whole bunch of really fun ways. If you are still under quarantine for COVID-19, I hope that you are staying safe. I hope that you're staying inside, hunkering down, and just trying to trudge through and get through everything that's going on with this. But thank you so much again for watching, and I will see you next time.